Boundaries are based on emotional safety, not how much you love someone. So every time I teach this pyramid, I reference the song from Tina Turner, What's Love Got to Do with It? When we're talking about setting boundaries, love has nothing to do with it. You can love someone and need to have boundaries. Now, let me take that a step further. You will love someone and need to have boundaries. You need to have boundaries in healthy relationships because that's the way we take care of ourselves. So guess what? It doesn't have anything to do with how much you love someone. You can love someone so much and not trust them. You can love someone so much and they're not emotionally safe for you. You can love someone so much and still need to have limits around that person. Love does not equal access. Safety equals access. Welcome to Grow with Robin Breckenridge, a podcast about stepping into the most fully expressed, aligned, and conscious version of yourself. Here, we dive into the real work of personal growth, establishing boundaries, understanding your patterns, building self-trust, healing emotional wounds, and creating relationships that feel safe, authentic, and fulfilling. I'm Robin, a life and relationship coach, and in each episode, we'll explore the tools, insights, and conversations that will help you not just improve your life and relationships, but truly transform them. You don't have to just go through it. Let's grow through it, and let's do it together. Hi, and welcome back to Grow with Robin Breckenridge. Today, I'm feeling exceptionally grateful because as soon as I'm done with this episode, I am hopping on a flight to Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm doing my first ever, totally planned by me, put together by me, orchestrated by me, and my co-facilitator, Erin Watt, who was a guest on the podcast also. It's the first time we're ever doing a retreat on our own. And we have this beautiful space. And I just woke up feeling really, really grateful because it's been quite a journey for me. And I'm positive there were parts of my journey where I never really envisioned this happening for myself or that I had the capabilities to put something like this together. So I'm just really grateful today. And I hope that it serves as a North Star of inspiration for anybody that's listening that might think that their dreams are far-fetched or that logically they don't make sense. There's not a whole lot of logical explanation for how I got to where I am today, other than I really, really, really worked on myself and I really focused on creating a life of alignment. And I know the people that have worked with me that are listening, they know that, and I know I've said it a bunch on this podcast, but what is on the other side of all of the crap that we've been dealing with is something that I don't even think we would think is possible from the vantage point that we're looking at when we're still working out some of the more negative thoughts, feelings, and behavior patterns. So I'm really excited because I have a whole week next week that is truly like dreams in the making, and I'm really excited. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And if you listen to my earlier episode on boundaries or episodes on boundaries and your basic emotional rights, I just want to thank you for coming back because today we are going a level deeper. Because if you have ever asked yourself, should I set a boundary? Or maybe should I go no contact with someone in my life? Am I being too sensitive? Or maybe not protective enough? Why do I feel so confused around this person in my life and exhausted after every interaction? Then this episode is definitely for you. Because today I'm going to introduce you to a system that I created and modified out of necessity, really. First for myself, and then for all of my clients. And it's called the Boundary Pyramid. Most of us did not grow up with clear roadmaps when it came to boundaries. We were either too open or too guarded. We stayed in relationships too long, or we cut people off without really understanding what we needed. I know that for myself, either I stayed too long and tolerated too much, or I cut you off. There was really two speeds in my life, kind of all in or all out. And even if you've done a lot of healing work, you might still feel unsure about who belongs where in your life. How much access should someone have to you, to your time, to your emotional world, to your nervous system? And that's what the boundary pyramid helps you figure out. It gives you a very clear, flexible framework to place people in your life based on their behavior, their level of emotional safety, and not on guilt, obligation, history, or potential. So today we're going to walk through the 5 levels of the boundary pyramid. And we're going to talk about how to know where to put people in the pyramid and when someone needs to be moved in the pyramid. And we're definitely going to be talking about why clarity is not cruelty. It's self-respect. So let's dive in. Let's be honest. Boundaries are not hard because we don't want them. They're hard because most of us were never taught how to set them. And when I say most of us, I'm being very general. Despite what books will say, or I don't know, interviews that you see on like Good Morning America or whatever, I personally don't think any of us have been taught a healthy system of boundaries. I mean, maybe you grew up in a secure home and there were some modeled or some boundaries modeled to you, but nobody has ever taught us a simplified system. And that's why this is revolutionary. It's literally so simple. When I teach this to clients, I pull it up and I go, here it is, the revolutionary system. It looks like a simple graphic with 5 different categories on it. I mean, it's that simple, but it's also that complex. That's why we're going to spend, probably a handful of episodes just talking about this pyramid so that you guys are really clear. Because if you're not clear, you can harm yourself and other people. And I take that very seriously. So either directly or indirectly, many of us were taught that having boundaries made us mean, selfish, cold. So instead, we learned to override our own needs. We learned to perform, to please, to shrink ourselves to avoid discomfort or disapproval. And now, even as adults, we're still carrying around that programming. We're walking around wondering, is it okay to ask for what I need? And if we're still stuck on that one, go back to the last episode because that's a really great place to start. Is it okay to limit someone's access to me? Am I allowed to change the rules in a relationship that once felt safe? And the answer is yes. You are allowed to change the rules. You are allowed to evolve, and you are allowed to protect your peace. But here's the thing. Knowing that logically is just absolutely not enough. And that's where the boundary pyramid comes in. It's not just a concept, it's a tool, a system. And I'm telling you guys, you will use this tool and system for the rest of your life. Like I didn't just learn this and then stop using it. I still use it every single day. In fact, I just had a big event that I went to and I started to feel like a little bit of social anxiety, which I don't really identify too much with because mine is like very quiet. And I always tell people like social anxiety, I think we all experience it because sometimes interactions with people are uncomfortable, but some of us go inward and some of us go outward in order to manage it. I'm someone who tends to go outward, like I'll make a friend or I'll make a conversation, but it doesn't mean there's not some nerves in there. So I literally just used this pyramid and went, okay, where is everybody in my categories? What are things that I can talk about with them that feel safe? And I prepped myself before I went. So I'm still using this system myself. So this is a system and a map to help you make aligned choices based on how your nervous system feels around someone. Now, I know for some of you guys listening, you might be like, what? Who? I don't know what my nervous system feels like, but that's why you're here. And guess what? We're gonna help you throughout this podcast and these episodes figure that out. Okay. But either way, it's how your nervous system feels around someone, or even more simply put, how emotionally safe you feel around people. It's not just about how much history you share. It helps you to stop asking questions like, is this okay? And start asking, but what's in alignment for me? And when we stop asking, like, is this okay? We realize that the answer to that question is in us. Like, I have so many clients come to me and they'll say, like, specifically with dating, like, is this allowed? Am I allowed to do this? Or like, am I allowed to have this boundary? Guess what? There is no rule book for this. All of the truth, it's inside of you. It's not even inside of me. I can't tell anyone, here's what you do in dating. Here's what you do with boundary setting. It's an individual process. That's why these type of systems that I use that are individualized really work, because there's not a one size fits all for everybody. So here's how it works. Imagine a pyramid with 5 levels. Now, because I'm on a podcast and maybe you're listening to this driving to work, maybe you're watching it on YouTube, but I'm going to attach a visual for the boundary pyramid, but it's literally a pyramid with 5 different categories. That's it. And I'm also going to attach a little cheat sheet for the categories. And I'd love for you guys to download them, to print them out, put them somewhere that you can access them. But the visual will be included. But because this is a podcast, I'm going to talk through the visual. So each level represents a different kind of relational access. How close someone is allowed to get to you and what parts of you they have access to. Again, based on emotional safety. So the 5 levels on the boundary pyramid are sacred, trust, shared interest, cordial, and no contact. And this is the part that's really important. Boundaries are not binary. They are not all or nothing. They are not yes or no. There are degrees of access to you. Just like I was saying earlier, that before I did this work, it was binary for me. You are all in or all out. And that's a really black and white way to approach relationships. So each level of the boundary pyramid represents a different energetic, emotional, and relational agreement. So people can move up or down depending on how safe, aligned, and trustworthy that you feel that they are. And you get to decide that. No one else. But before we talk through each level, we need to talk about something critical. There are a few truths you need to understand before you place people in the categories. Because if you try to place someone without understanding these principles, you'll likely end up doing what most of us do, giving people too much access because you love them, keeping people in your life out of guilt, and betraying yourself in the process. And if you haven't caught on to the theme here, we're not here to betray ourselves. We're not here to neglect ourselves. We are here to be the most fully expressed versions of us from a place of authenticity. And I am not going to stop until we get there. So let's pause for a minute before we even go into the pyramid and get really clear on what needs to be true first before you put anybody into categories. So in my opinion, this might be the most important part of this episode, because the pyramid only works when it's grounded in emotional truth, not wishful thinking or old patterns. So here are 5 truths you need to know before you start placing people in the boundary pyramid. Truth number 1, boundaries are based on emotional safety, not how much you love someone. So every time I teach this pyramid, I reference the song from Tina Turner, What's Love Got to Do with It? When we're talking about setting boundaries, love has nothing to do with it. You can love someone and need to have boundaries. Now, let me take that a step further. You will love someone and need to have boundaries. You need to have boundaries in healthy relationships because that's the way we take care of ourselves. So guess what? It doesn't have anything to do with how much you love someone. You can love someone so much and not trust them. You can love someone so much and they're not emotionally safe for you. You can love someone so much and still need to have limits around that person. Love does not equal access. Safety equals access. I'm going to say that again. Love does not equal access. Safety equals access. So truth number 2, trust is not a feeling. It's an integration of the data that you've collected, which would be logical, and the way you feel around someone. I think at least for myself, and I know I've had a lot of clients that this was true for, I really did think trust was a feeling. Like I met this person, we had this super deep conversation, that's it. Like I trust them. Well, the truth is I didn't know them. If we go back to my definition of trust, trust is data over time. If you don't know someone, you just do not have enough data on them. There's some good like green flags. It's like, oh, okay, I noticed these things about them, but we cannot just say we trust someone that we don't know. Data over time. We need consistency. Consistency is the main ingredient of trust. So this is something I emphasize with every client. Trust is earned. Again, data over time. It's built through consistent behavior, not one good moment, not a promise. Definitely not their potential. Trust comes from safety, being able to repair in a safe way, that you have evidence that this person can take accountability and has integrity over time. Truth number 3, people can move categories, and they should. This is a dynamic system. Someone who was in your trust category last year, you might have had something happen. Or maybe as you go through this work, you get to know yourself more deeply and you realize you have more needs than this person can meet. And maybe they need to be moved to a different category. Maybe someone who once broke your trust may have started to rebuild it over time. But your job is to notice what's true now and honor it. So just know that when we're putting people in boundary categories, they're not stuck there forever. Now, if someone's moving back and forth, let's say from like trust to shared interest over and over and over again, we might want to pause and look a little bit at that relationship to see like, where can we find some consistency that's aligned? But no one is stuck in these categories. Now, of course, there are some people that won't move categories, and that's okay too. Truth number 4, you don't owe closeness to anyone, not even your family. The only thing you owe is your integrity to yourself. You are not required to let someone in just because they share your DNA or because you were once close. And that's not cold. That's discerning and conscious. Truth number 5, cordial and no contact, which I'm kind of jumping ahead here. They're not mean, they're wise. Okay. So some of these lower categories can feel like there's a lot of emotional distance. And that's only because the truth is there is a lot of emotional distance. So sometimes the kindest thing that we can do is keep a relationship very light and very discerning, or step away completely. And you can be polite and kind in your approach in doing that. You can honor someone's humanity and still protect your peace. Before I take you guys through the different categories, one, I always have to mention that sometimes boundary work is grief work. This pyramid has a way of putting all of your relationships into a place of reality like that. And for anybody that's listening and not watching, I just snapped my fingers like that fast. I know that when I did a similar exercise very early on in my work, this pyramid felt like a bitch slap in the face. Like I was already going through a hard time. And then I went through and was like, oh, cool. I don't have anyone in my trust category. And that didn't mean that I was screwed or, being victimized by the universe. It just meant that I did not have healthy boundaries and I was trusting the wrong people, which is why I had a narrative running as an undercurrent in my life that I couldn't trust anybody. So that bitch slap was a wake up, but it doesn't mean it didn't hurt. Doesn't mean it didn't sting. So you guys might walk through this pyramid and feel like a really big ouch, or it might take kind of where you are and make it a little bit worse before it gets better. So I'm always going to tell you that if any of this work feels destabilizing or activating, please find a place of support, whether that's somebody that you trust or a professional, because none of us can walk through this on your own. So I always want to mention that boundary work is grief work. So if this makes you sad or you say, gosh, my husband is not in the category that I want them to, just remember the whole entire purpose of me even doing this podcast. Because guess what, y'all? I'm busy. This is something that I've added on to a very busy schedule already. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm here to help you improve your life and relationships. And I'm not the only one that can do it. Okay. I just happen to have a system that works. So I'm sharing it with everybody. But because I'm not the only one that can help, there are so many other qualified professionals that can help you through this. And you can absolutely bring this system into your professional place of help and say, hey, this is what I'm using, explain it to them and say, I'm feeling super depressed after this, or I'm really sad about the state of my relationships, because I am here to help you improve your life and relationships, not keep it in this place. Okay. We have to get a baseline first in order to get to a place of reality so we know where to go in and we know what to fix and improve in our life. Also, one disclaimer before I go through the different categories is that I'm going to go through this really quickly. This episode is really just a very quick little dip into the pyramid. I am going to do episodes on every single category where we take a deeper dive. We are going to go through all of the things that go that are aligned with this type of work, like how do I communicate my boundaries? How do I interact with people after I've realized that they're not in the category that I want? So please know I got you. And if for some reason, because I can't get everybody's nuanced need, you need more help, guess what? Me and my lovely team, Grace and Megan, we are coming up right now with a course just on the boundary pyramid. So if you can hang tight, and you need more help and support, we're putting something together where you're going to be able to take a deeper dive in this work and then have some access to me to ask more nuanced questions. So please know that I'm not here to take you through this and then dip. I'm with you. I got you. We're going to cover everything that you need. And if I can't cover everything you need, I'm going to come up in a very short amount of time with a way for everybody that wants to access me to have a way to do that. Okay. So buckle up. Are you guys ready? We're going in the pyramid. So where we're going to start is with the sacred category. That would be the very top part of the pyramid. The sacred category, very simply put, is reserved for a relationship in which you feel unconditionally loved and safe. Now, again, you guys are going to hear I define a lot of things because I feel like emotions are confusing enough. Why wouldn't we make it just as clear as possible? So let me define the word unconditional. Unconditional means 100% of the time. So that means this is a relationship in which you feel 100% loved and safe. This is a relationship in which they know everything about you. We are not hiding anything. We are not putting a mask on. We're not hiding our feelings. We're not too afraid to bring something to this particular relationship. And this relationship is reciprocal, which means what we're getting, we're giving back. Now, here is the humdinger in this category. My strong suggestion is that you do not put a human being in this category. Every time I do this, people are like, what do you mean? This category is reserved for a relationship with a higher power. Sometimes for certain people, I'm one of them. You can put an animal in this category because we have unconditionally loving relationships with animals. In fact, just last weekend, I had to put my heart and soulmate dog down. And any of my old clients who are listening know this. She was always in my sacred category. We had the most loving, reciprocal, safe relationship truly I've ever experienced on this earth plane. She passed. She's still in my sacred category. I still talk to her. I still connect to that deep, beautiful, safe love. So this category, my strong recommendation is a higher power, is a loving animal relationship. I've had people who don't believe in a higher power put something like nature or trees in this category. It's anything that you truly feel unconditionally loved and safe. Now, I do not tell people where to put people in categories. So I have had people over the years that will put maybe one person in. Maybe they have that one person that's really true and they experience that in a human relationship. For most of us that have any kind of relational trauma, it's probably a really good idea to not put a human being in this category because human beings are capable of unconditional love. We are not capable of unconditional tolerance. So that being said, one other thing that I always bring into this category is that, in my opinion, relationships are kind of like the biggest school of life here. We learn the most about ourselves in relationships with other people, which means that, just even going back to your basic rights, you have the right to make a mistake and learn from them. It means that we are going to make mistakes in relationships, and all relationships are cycles of harmony, disharmony, and repair. So disharmony or conflict is actually a natural part of the cycle of relationships. So if everything was perfect all the time in relationships, we wouldn't be learning anything. So this entire pyramid is really about having realistic expectations in your life or understanding when other people have unrealistic expectations of you. So for myself, when I think about this category, and I think about what someone or something would need to have to go in this category, my descriptors have always and never in them. Like truly, truly, if I go, okay, Robin, what do you need to feel 100% loved and safe? Guess what? You can never leave me because I got a problem with that. And you can never judge me because I also have a wound around that. Name me one person in this life that is never going to judge me ever and is never going to leave. Like, here's the bad news about this journey we're on. Everybody leaves one way or another, right? I don't like it, but that's a part of the gig here. So if I put someone in this category, if I put a human, I'm setting them up because I'm going to have unrealistic expectations of them. So I'll use myself as an example. I have God in this category for me, or interchange that with whatever you want to use, the universe, infinite intelligence, whatever. I call it God. And my dog, Palmer, who up until last week was here in physical form and is no longer. And it doesn't matter if her body's here or not. She is still in my sacred category. Okay. So this relationship is one that you feel unconditionally loved and safe. You can show everything about you. You know that they will be there for you no matter what. And this is a relationship that is reciprocal. So just really quickly, when I was thinking about that part of this category, and I knew that I had my higher power in this category, I thought, what is my relationship like with my higher power? And at one point in my life, it really looked like me like calling on my relationship with God, being like, I deserve a better house. I work so hard. I shouldn't have these challenges. And I want this. And I went, okay, if that was a human relationship, what would that look like? And I was like, ugh, God, I mean, that is like just full of entitlement. That is a one-way street. I'm literally going, gimme, gimme, gimme. I don't like this. I want more of this. And I was like, oh yeah, no, that's not a reciprocal relationship. So my way of of showing up in a reciprocal way to God is to be intentional about having time to connect with the spiritual aspects of my life that bring me joy and peace and love. And every day I wake up and I ask God, like, help me fulfill your will in this life. And I think it's even part of why I'm here. I have no idea how I have a podcast. I don't even know why any of you guys would want to listen to one thing I have to say. That's the truth. But every day I wake up and I say, okay, like, how can I serve this thing that has unconditionally loved me, that gives me sunlight, air, warmth, everything I need. My goodness, my whole journey. I mean, I'm not saying it's been rainbows and butterflies, but I have been supported every single step. Every time I smacked my face on the ground and the bottom of my life, the teacher appeared, the community appeared, the support appeared. So that's my way of having reciprocity in that relationship, is showing up in a way that feels like I'm also emulating what was given to me. So I want you guys to stop and just contemplate, like, what characteristics would someone or something need to have in order for me to feel unconditionally loved and safe? Now, some examples, I'm going to use myself. Like I said, always and nevers. You can never leave me. You can never judge me. You're always there for me. Honest, safe, understanding, like go on and on and on. You can't put enough in this, okay? But when we list out those characteristics, what we're really doing is we're writing out a roadmap of how to vet who goes into what category. So if you're driving, re-listen to this episode when you have a piece of paper and take a minute and write those out. What characteristics would something or someone need to have in order for me to feel unconditionally loved and safe? And when we get to the part where we're putting people into categories, I want you to reference that list, okay? And what I teach everybody when I'm teaching this system is we don't round up. What you're writing out in these characteristics is like the most simplified way of saying, this is what I need to feel 100% safe. And if you've got 7 out of 10 of those, boo, go to the next category down. Okay. Because our job is to keep ourselves emotionally safe. And here's an absolute: you trust somebody or you don't. If you kind of trust somebody, you don't fully trust them. Okay. So we're not rounding up. If you've got 10 characteristics, if we're talking about God, if we're talking about whoever you're vetting going in this category, they got to have all 10. Okay, next category is the trust category. And it's just that. This is a relationship that is rooted in trust. Now, the difference between the sacred and the trust category, because they can feel very similar, is the unconditional component is no longer present in this category. Okay, which means we can put human beings in this category. So the trust category is where human intimacy happens. Let me explain what intimacy means. Intimacy means into me you see. It means I allow you to see the parts of me that I would prefer to exile, the parts we don't bring out into society, the parts that we don't really like or we don't really want to show people, like vulnerable parts of us. And I know I'm hopping ahead, but like these are relationships we could bring our wounded inner child to, or when we're not feeling exceptionally strong or we need help, it's safe enough to bring that level of vulnerability to these people. This category is also reciprocal, which means what you're giving, you're also getting back, and vice versa. And this is a relationship that someone would know almost everything about you, okay? So there's a word that I use a lot when I'm talking about boundary setting, and the word is discernment. Discernment means good judgment. That's not the judgment where I'm looking down my nose at someone. It's the data part, right? Trust is data over time. It means I have collected data and I am using that data to help me. So in this trust category, we still can have some discernment. We don't have to tell everybody everything about us, but we're safe enough to tell them almost everything about us. And in this category, like I said, consistency is the main ingredient of trust. But here's the deal. From a realistic perspective, Human beings are not capable of being 100% of anything, even consistent. But in this category, I want you to hear this really clearly. It's not that the expectation is you're 100% consistent. It is that you are mostly consistent, meaning that like, I know you're going to show up, and let's say maybe you're at work, maybe you have kids, maybe something's going on, but I know that you will show up for me after that. I can count on you that you will be there. So these are emotionally consistent people. In that cycle of harmony, disharmony, repair, I want you guys to know that the repair is the most impactful part of a relationship that contributes to the health of the relationship. Okay. So the repair has to be handled in a safe way. And I'm going to give you guys a simple example of what is safe and what is not safe. Okay. Like, let's say someone comes to me and says, "Hey, Robin, last time we hung out, you said something to me that felt judgmental." And I can handle it in one of two ways, right? First way is I can be like, "Oh my God, it's always about your feelings." Well, you know what? 2 times ago when we hung out, you said something to me and I thought it was super judgmental and I didn't say anything about it. So you know what? Grow up. Deal with it. Now, you don't even have to be a narcissist. Now, a narcissist would handle it that way, but you don't even have to be a narcissist to handle it that way. You just have to be emotionally immature. And there's a lot of emotionally immature people out there. That is not repair. They did not acknowledge what you brought up. You were not seen, heard, understood. They did not take any accountability and change their behavior. But that stuff happens all the time. And that is not safe. And that is not trustworthy. Now, same infraction, I can handle it a different way and say, "Oh my gosh, Sally, I am so sorry. Now that you're saying that, I can see how what I said could come across judgmental. That's not how I meant it, but I can totally understand how that felt. I am so sorry. That sharpness is something I'm working on. And I am not going to bring that up again because how you feel around me matters." What in the F, right? Like, look at that same infraction, but the way that I responded to it, I acknowledged the way that person felt. I took accountability for my behavior. I let them know that I want them to feel safe around me and how they feel around me matters. That is a healthy repair. Now, me and Sally, we're going to feel closer to each other than before that infraction happened, which is why conflict is actually a necessary part of relationships. And if conflict is handled in a safe way, we can actually build more intimacy. We can build more safety. So conflict is not the problem. If you guys have relationships that have some conflict in it, it's okay. It's just, how is that conflict being handled? And if it's being handled in a safe way, then that person can go in the trust category. Now, here's another little piece, and we'll talk about this more when I break down these categories, but ultimately, we want you to be in the trust category for you. And let me tell you, there's a lot of things that we're doing in relationship with us that isn't safe. And the repair isn't handled in a safe way. Like, i.e., even the way you speak to yourself. Okay. Like, maybe we would be like, "Oh, that person doesn't go in my trust category because, they're really sassy to me." Well, how sassy are you to you? Right? Like, ultimately, we want to get you in the trust category with you as often as possible. Okay. So to sum this up, trust category means that the relationship is rooted in trust. Any conflict is handled in a safe way. You're not afraid to bring your feelings to this person. We don't have to be conflict avoidant in this relationship. It's reciprocal. So what we're giving, we're getting back, and vice versa. And ultimately, this is someone who's consistent and you feel that you can trust and feel safe with. Okay. So the moment of contemplation I want you guys to take here is, what characteristics would someone need to have in order for me to trust them? Now, some of those characteristics might be similar to the sacred category. It's just, we want to take the absolute language out of it. So maybe in the sacred category, I would say always available. And in the trust category, I would say like loving when available, meaning that if I call someone in a 911 and they go, "Hey, I'm in a work meeting and I'm not out till 7, but I'll call you when I can," I know that person is going to call me when they can. Okay. So there's a little bit more room to be a human being in this category. So the next category is the shared interest category. And this is where most friends and family are going to go. Okay. This category is just that. You have a shared interest with this person. The shared interest might be family, might be friends, might be history, might be I work with them. It might be you are my kids' friends' parents, but the relationship is not rooted in trust. So maybe it means I don't have enough data over time on you because I just met you. Maybe it means that there was something that happened that broke my trust, and it's safer for me to have more boundaries. Maybe it's just that there's something about the way that person shows up, like their behavior, the way they interact with you, even their energy. Like I have been in rooms with people where I'm like, wow, that person's so nice, but man, there's something about their energy that doesn't feel safe around me. And usually when I get curious, I can figure it out. Like, ooh, they looked me up and down when I came in the room, and that felt kind of judgmental. But whatever it is, like once we start to know ourselves, we can take the risk to just believe it, because there is a very wise system in our nervous system that lets us know what's safe and what's not safe. So in this category, we are keeping the relationship relational by keeping it light. So we are not over disclosing personal details of our life. We are not bringing a lot of vulnerability to this relationship, meaning that we're not bringing our sensitive feelings, or if something's going on in our life that we're still working out, it's really not safe to bring to this person. And then there's a few principles in this category, and I'll go into them a little bit more deeply when I break down these categories in future episodes. But one is that you trust someone or you don't. So almost every time I teach this system to groups, someone will raise their hand and say, hey, Robin, you need a category in between trust and shared interest. And I'll always say, okay, would you call it the kind of trust category? And they're like, yes, the kind of trust category. And I'm like, listen, I'm not here to be rigid. I'm here to be clear. That's what this system is about. Clarity, not rigidity. Kind of trust is not clear. And if any of us have any type of trauma, like it is our job to protect and emotionally attune to that inner child that's been through some shit. So we do need to know from a black and white perspective, who is safe and who is not. So if someone is kind of safe or we kind of trust them, it's a lot better to err on the side of caution, put them into the shared interest category, and just have a little bit more boundaries and get more data over time. Please hear me. This system is not a demotion system. Because somebody goes into a different category doesn't mean it's punishment. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it's true. It just means that I don't feel as safe with this person. So you trust someone or you don't. In this category, nobody owes you anything and you don't owe them anything. Now that can feel super cold. So let me give you the caveat to that statement. You always owe it to yourself to stay in your integrity. Okay. So if you're dating someone and you don't like them anymore and you go, oh, I'm in shared interest with this person, I don't need to call them back. I'm just going to ghost them. Okay. Listen, if it was me, I would feel guilty if I ghosted someone. Like if I saw them at CVS, I would like take off down the aisle. I wouldn't want them to see me, which means that that is out of my integrity if I have some level of shame or guilt around the behavior. So ghosting someone, I actually would feel guilty. Now, shame and guilt are low vibrational energies. So not even that like, oh yeah, they kind of suck. You don't want to be there because you can't bring great things into your life from a low vibrational energy. So I don't owe this person anything, but if I owe it to myself to stay in my integrity, I can just say, hey, it was really nice meeting you. I don't think that this is aligned for me, but I wish you the best, and be done with it. And then I'm in my integrity, but I'm not carrying inappropriate levels of responsibility. And again, I'm going to go through these categories in future episodes, but we have to carry realistic amounts of responsibility in relationships, because when we don't, that's called codependency. And let me tell you, codependency doesn't go well for anybody. It's not a fun ride. Okay. So you don't know anybody anything. They don't know you anything, but you owe it to yourself to stay in your integrity. And then here's the other one. We can't have emotional expectations of people that we don't trust. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. I had a friend that, a lot of the times she would break plans with me. And there was a time in my life where like, I really just needed something to do. And she had asked me to go to brunch, and I was really excited about it. I was like going to get dressed up and go do something on a Sunday. And about an hour before we were supposed to meet each other, she canceled. And I had this whole experience that I was able to get curious with and observe and witness. And the first thing that came up when she canceled was I thought, fuck her, she's dead to me. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's an interesting response. And so I got curious with it. And I realized that was like my protector, what I call your inner teenager, that was cutting her out of my life, that was going to abandon her before I got abandoned. And so I was thinking about it, and I went, okay, well, if my protector's up and my teenager's up, then that means my inner child's up. But I wasn't hearing her at all. So I got curious with it, and I went, okay, well, how does she feel? And then I had this thought come through, and it was like, gosh, no one cares about you. Like, you don't even matter enough for people to show up when they say they're going to show up. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's so sad. I didn't even realize that was going on. So I decided, where am I going to put her where is she in my boundary categories? And I went, she's in shared interest. She was not my best friend. She was just kind of like a fun friend. And I went, okay, well, if she's in shared interest, I can't have emotional expectations of her because I don't trust her. And then I got into an argument with myself, and I said, you can't expect people to show up when they say they're going to show up. Like, she invited me. The heck kind of system is this? And then this voice came through so clear and absolute. And it said, no, Robin, you can't expect her to be consistent when all the data you have on her is that she's inconsistent, because she flaked on me all the time. And in that moment, I went from being a victim to her and everyone else who had ever, made me feel disregarded in my life, to having choice. And so I went, okay, where do I want to put her in my categories? Should I keep her in shared interest and just have a backup plan and not block out my day and know that there's a high likelihood she's going to cancel? Should I put her in cordial because we have friends in common and just be like, hi, how are you? And that's it. Or should I put her in no contact and never talk to her again? And I made the decision in that moment to keep her in shared interest and have backup plan, which, just FYI, there was no wrong choice in that. I could have chosen any one of those and it would have been okay. But I don't know, 12 years later, I'm really glad I didn't cut her out of my life, because we're still friends to this day, and it's a light friendship and it's enjoyable. And I was able to trust myself enough to make a choice instead of being a victim. So that is an example of why we can't have emotional expectations of people we don't trust, because you get burned. Okay. So again, the number one thing you can do in this work is just start to take data of how you feel in your relationships with other people. So shared interest is just that. You have a shared interest with this person. Relationship is not rooted in trust. You're going to have some boundaries in this category with people because you don't have full trust, and maybe they're not as emotionally safe. And again, this category is not about how much you love someone. This is a very big category. You can have someone you work with, you can have Sue from accounting that you can't stand, and your mom in this category, which is why it's not about how much you love someone. It's just about whether you trust them or you don't, and how emotionally safe you feel. Now, this category in particular can get pretty confusing. So please tune in to the next couple episodes where I'm going to break these categories down and dive in super deep so that they're really clear. The next category is the cordial category. And the cordial category is either for someone A, you do not like, or B, you do not care to have a deeper relationship with. So you keep it cordial. And I'm going to define what cordial is. And I want you guys to hear this, because this one gets really confusing too. So please tune in to the cordial episode when I break it down. Cordial means, hi, how are you? And that's it. Okay. So we see someone, we know I don't really like them, or they've activated me in the past, or they're not safe for me, or I just don't care to have a deeper relationship with this person. And we see them and we go, hi, how are you? Good, good. And you keep moving. I did this with someone who had a history of being a hater with me in my life. And I had to go into a birthday party or whatever. And this person cornered me in the kitchen and she said, so you're a life coach now? Now, if that statement is not loaded with judgment, I don't know what is. Now there's a past version of me that would have like put the tap shoes on and been like, yeah. And I'm really busy and I'm doing really great work and I'm helping people. And I would have tried to prove myself to someone that I truly do not care to have a deeper relationship with. Instead, I went, I am. How are you doing? And she was like, oh, not good. I go, I'm sorry to hear that. It was so nice to see you. And I walked away. And I will tell you, just like I've said in other episodes, my guilt talked first. I was like, oh my God, that was mean. That was cold. But then I left that party and I got in my car and I went, holy smokes, I did not sell myself out when I felt uncomfortable, because anything I was about to tell that person was just going to be used to judge me. And listen, I have other things and better things to do with my time and energy. Okay. So you don't have to be mean in this category. It's not cold. It's just honest. I just really didn't want to go deeper with this person. But at the same point, I was cordial because I didn't want to, I didn't need to make it like a super conflict ridden interaction with that person. Okay. So cordial, hi, how are you? And that's it. A lot of people will put people in this category because they feel a lot of emotional distance. So I've had people go, well, my mom isn't cordial. And I'll say, okay, well, do you say more than hi, how are you then? And that's it. Well, yeah, she texts me all the time. Okay, well, again, this is just from a place of reality. It's our starting point. That person's actually in shared interest. If you're saying more than hi, how are you? And that's it. Cordial is just that. So all that means is I have somebody where either I don't feel safe or there's a lot of like crap under the rug with that person, but yet I'm still in a shared interest relationship with them. And again, this isn't about rigidity. This is so that you know how to help yourself. Because if you really are in a shared interest with someone that isn't safe, we need to have some more boundaries. And just really quickly, I know in the sacred and the trust category, I had you guys think about characteristics. I'm not asking you guys to think about what characteristics someone would need to have to go in the shared interest, cordial, or no contact category, because we don't trust them. And because you will set yourself up to be disappointed. So keep in mind that any relationship, shared interest relationship, I have a lot of friends in shared interest, a lot of really great friends that I've known for a long time. You get to have standards in your relationships. Okay. So if I'm investing time and energy, I do want you to be respectful and funny and cool and kind, but I can't expect everybody in my shared interest category to be that, because maybe Sue from accounting is a jerk. And that's just the bottom line. I'm in a relationship with her 6 hours a day at my office. So I got to figure out how to do that in a way that keeps me the most safe. Okay. So we're not writing out characteristics for the shared interest, cordial, or no contact category. So the last category is no contact. And this would be for a relationship in which you feel emotionally and or physically unsafe. Not to the degree that I leave that person and I'm annoyed, to the degree that I feel dysregulated and destabilized when I see this person. Okay, so in this category, sometimes people are going to go in there for life. And sometimes people are going to go in there for a period of time while you're healing. So this is a really good category if you have just recently had a breakup, to put someone in for a period of time so that you can heal. And then you can move them. Maybe if there's some sort of big like boundary infraction with a friend or a family member, maybe you need to put them in no contact for a period of time. And then you can move them back to shared interest with some repair, some healthy repair. But definitely, this is where anybody who's been abusive in your life needs to go in this category. If there's not been any repair, but sometimes abusers continue to abuse. Maybe a toxic family member, a friend who repeatedly violates your boundaries and refuses any accountability. No contact is definitely not punishment, it's protection. And like I said, it can be temporary or it could be forever. But in this category, I have to say, like, we really need to think about boundaries, because no contact isn't just like verbal or physical contact. It's also energetic contact. Like if you have someone in no contact, you don't want to be witnessing their life on social media. You might need to put boundaries around friends that you have in common, because our nervous system does not know the difference between seeing something on social media and it happening right in front of your face. That's why like I've had people call and go, I don't know why I'm so upset. All I did was see him on vacation with his new girlfriend. And it's like, okay, well, because your nervous system was basically sitting on the chair next to them, watching his new life and all of the happiness and feeling all of the feels. Okay. So it's really important that we put boundaries in place in the no contact category with anything that feels like even energetic contact. So remember, you don't owe anyone access to your life, especially people who are not safe and who have harmed you. So let's talk about shifting people. People can and often should move between categories. Someone who you once trusted may no longer feel safe. Someone you kept at a distance might earn their way closer. I mean, the more you get to know yourself, the more you kind of can release the rigidity of this or tighten it up. Like maybe you're giving too much access to people and you need to put people in that shared interest category or down the pyramid. Or maybe you can loosen the reins because you know more about what you need, that you keep yourself emotionally safe. So this is a living system that's living with you and growing and expanding with you. We are not labeling people. You're honoring the current truth. And let me say this really clearly. This is an internal boundary system. I never, ever, ever suggest that you go out in life and go, guess what? You used to be in trust and now you're in shared interest. Boom. No, this is not for other people to know. This is an internal system for you to vet out where people go in your life. So remember that sometimes that can be grieving a version of a relationship that's no longer aligned for you. Sometimes it's grieving the person that you used to be in relationship with that person. And that is all okay. It's growth. Growth is not always comfortable, but that's why we have support out there. So if you're going through a really uncomfortable place of growth, please seek out some support. So now what? Here's a reflection you can journal on or just think through today. Who in my life feels safe, supportive, and emotionally consistent? Who feels draining, confusing, or is activating me? And where do they belong on the pyramid? You can ask yourself honestly, what level of access does my nervous system feel okay with in regards to this person? Remember, the boundary pyramid is a tool, but it's also a declaration. It says, I'm allowed to decide who has access to me. I'm allowed to change the rules when safety changes, and I'm allowed to protect my peace. If this episode resonated, I would love to invite you to download the attachments to this episode, which would be the boundary pyramid, just the simple graphic, and the cheat sheet, which is just a really simplified way to look at it. And I would love for you to send this episode to anyone that you think might benefit from this system. Now, remember, the expectation here is not that you fully understand this system. Like I said, it's my show. I haven't even decided how many episodes I'm going to do on boundaries, but I know that I'm going to break this down in a very specific and simplified way. Okay. So if this episode feels overwhelming at all or confusing, please subscribe so that you get the reminders every Wednesday when these come out, because we're about to deep dive into this system. In the very near future, I'm going to do a whole course on this in which you will have access to jump on Zooms with me as a group and ask any specific questions and get any specific support that you need. Like I said, I got you. I'm on this journey with you and I got your back. In the course that I'm creating and in future episodes, we're going to talk about how to apply the system in real time, how to communicate any boundaries or any changes that the system brings up into your life, how to deal with pushback from boundary pushers, how to grieve and integrate and rebuild your own trust with yourself. Because this work is not just about your relationships with other people. It might be what kind of is the catalyst of people coming into this work. But this work is about your relationship with you. Thank you so much for being here. I am so glad and so grateful that we get to do this work together. So until next time, protect your peace, honor your truth, get curious with everything that we've talked about on this podcast and specifically in this episode. And remember, not everybody gets access to every part of you. And that does not make you cruel. It makes you clear and loyal to yourself. So I'm about to catch a flight and go do this magical retreat I'll see you next week where I'm going to start breaking down the sacred and trust category. So again, if you feel overwhelmed at all, don't worry. We're going to break this down so simple and clear. I got you. And I'll see you next week. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for being here and for doing this work. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Come connect with me over on TikTok at Robin Breckenridge or Instagram at Coach with Robin, where I share even more insights, tools, and conversations around boundaries, self-trust, relational healing, and so much more. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and personal growth purposes only. The insights and tools I share are based on my experience as a life and relationship coach and are meant for general guidance. Each person's story is unique, and the nuances of individual experiences can't always be addressed in this format. What's shared here may not be applicable to every situation, especially those involving abuse, oppression, severe mental illness, or systematic harm. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please seek support from a qualified mental health professional or emergency resources. Thank you for listening and for showing up for yourself in this way. Take care, and I'll see you next time.